Hello and welcome to the July 2014 edition of the TetraCast. My name is Zack Reese. I am your host. Joining us today is Simon Chung.
You don't sound too enthusiastic with that intro there, man. Is it because we chastised you?
No. No, it's totally not what just happened. Not that I screwed up for the past 20 minutes trying to figure out what we're going to talk about at all.
48 minutes and 16 seconds, man.
48 minutes? No, my recording is over an hour now.
I thought it sounded very professional.
Yeah, it's fine. I started off strong. Let's see how things go downhill from here. So, and also Adam Vitale.
Vitale.
Hey.
Vitale.
Vitale.
Name.
I thought I said that before, and you told me.
No, it's Zack Reese.
Zack Reese. Representing the Zack Reese. We are our own person. And then, of course, join us today after a long absence, since we have been sticking with a pretty core group. But joining us again, Ron Taylor.
How you doing, Zach? Oh man, I see you're having a rough time, aren't you?
I am going to make my way through this and hopefully don't have a nervous breakdown because I don't know what to talk about.
I'm here for you. We are going to get through this, and Simon's probably going to troll you, and it's probably going to be funny. But
I am not troll. I don't troll. I don't troll. This is not what I do.
Oh man.
I'll just drink this giant gallon of water that I have next to me through this milk jug. Hopefully make my way through
where
it.
Zach put the end on the end of the podcast of me buying the Sword Art Online. That's being trolled.
That was good. Oh yeah, you're gonna bring that up now?
Of course I'm gonna bring that up
a year ago.
You don't talk about that, dude.
We don't talk about this. I did tell you that we were gonna add it at the end, and we totally did. It's true. And now you're excited for the next one. I'm sure you're gonna be buying that one. You already have it pre-ordered. Sword Art Online 2, I'm sure you already got that lined up.
Well, it depends on how good it is, because I didn't buy Volume 3 or 4 of the first series.
He's got to be thrilled to play.
$400? Well,
yeah, he's got to spend $400.
He's got to be thrilled to play Hollow Fragment on his Vita.
I'm really excited to play Sword Art Online on my Vita. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
are you? Oh man, that game looks rough.
It does look rough, but I want to see how bad it is before making.
Isn't it a PSP like a port or no?
No.
Well, yeah, it technically. Yeah,
it is. No, Hollow Fragment is the up port. It's
Infinite Moment.
Infinite Memory.
Infinite Moment. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so but Hollow Fragment I think is straight up like a Vita game, isn't it?
Is well, they rebuilt the engine for the Vita, but like apparently like the combat's supposed to be much faster. But yeah, I'm excited to play it just to see either how good of a train wreck this is or how good of an actual game this might be. From what I understand,
you get to choose your wife,
it's actually not bad. So,
hey, that's not.
I did hear you get to choose your girl, though. That's going to be exciting.
Game, is it?
It's not a what?
A Furyu.
It's not them, is it?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Might be.
Oh God. Damn it.
I guess you'll have to wait.
Damn it, Ron. Why you do this to me?
It was because I was thinking of the whole girlfriend thing in the game with Asuna and some of the other characters, and I was like, wait, I think there might be Furyu making that game. I don't know. Could be wrong.
Okay, just to be clear, Furyu is a developer of many anime-looking games.
Okay.
And so, like, I'm trying to, like, come up with the top of my head. What was that one game that came out recently that was a bunch of people kissing each other?
Extetra?
Yeah, there was that.
The game that was never localized, and apparently it was kind of garbage, and so good thing, I guess.
That was Bamco. Bamco made it.
Oh, I could have told you that.
Bamco published it and developed it.
And developed it. Okay. Apparently it was at E3, and I did not see it there at all. And I was behind closed doors. I was there. They didn't have a booth. They had a meeting room at E3. Yeah, so, I mean, we were going to talk about this anyway, but yeah, of course, E3 happened this past month.
It did?
And so,
oh, man.
Yeah,
I
totally did. Totally happened.
Crazy.
Yep. Wasn't even a month ago.
They have like
came and went,
or what?
They didn't have any. Wait, I didn't know E3 happened. I thought they only just announced one game, and it was called Bloodborne. That was about it.
Oh man, that's crazy. All I knew was that like they said that there was going to be some convention, but FF15 wouldn't be there. So I'm pretty.
E3 was shit this year. Fuck E3. There, I said it.
I had a good time. To be honest, I had a good time.
In the same position as Simon, I want to say I think he is categorically wrong. and there was good stuff at E3.
It was. Yeah. There was definitely some good stuff at E3. I think the fact that people put so much weight into these bigger games that they don't realize just how strong a lineup of titles are still coming, even this year. And so I still got my
fill. Games coming this fall that is exclusive that you are excited for.
Okay.
Destiny?
That is not an exclusive.
Might as well be.
Well, if it's PS4 exclusive, are we really going to go down that road?
That's not...
There you go.
Is that an exclusive?
No, it's PS3.
It counts.
Fine. That doesn't count.
I don't... Why do we have to narrow PS4? Are you a fanboy here?
So much ass that it makes a porn flick look good. Oh wait,
what?
The other way around. It makes this look like a porn flick.
What are we...
What analogy are you using here?
But
I think there's still some really great games.
They showed games, and the games they showed were pretty fantastic. I was actually pretty surprised by like stuff like how Batman Arkham Knight looked and stuff like that. But like there just wasn't a strong lineup for the remainder of the year. I felt like
my take is that in terms of first party exclusives, it is a very, very bad year. It is like Nintendo has like I don't know what Nintendo has for the fall, but they have good stuff coming next year. Sony has Little Big Planet 3 and Drive Club, and Microsoft has Sunset Overdrive and the Halo Collection. It's all like if you're interested in first party games, it's pretty bad. And if you like third party games, you have a new console or you have a PC to get that stuff on. So I don't know.
Like that Little Big Planet 3 demo that went on also for way too long.
That went on way too long. Yeah, that was way too long. Totally.
But just to bring up about the Little Big Planet 3 demos that they showed, apparently, surprise, trying to hook up all this equipment up to a big projector and try to play a game, there is extreme amounts of latency. And so trying to play that game on a big screen, it's like...
It's not their first time playing it on the stage.
But it's the latency.
It's not their first time
about playing the game and the skill. What?
It's Little Big Planet. It's the same. It's going to be the same feel and innards and engine stuff as Little Big Planet 2 was. It's the same floaty jump. I mean, it doesn't. Little Big Planet.
No, Zach's saying that there's latency between the actual like input and like what comes up on the screen.
Right,
you don't realize that when you hook up,
it's Little Big Planet 2, but with a 3 on it.
I get it.
It's the same.
No, we're talking
the same game. It looks a little bit prettier, and they played it on stage before. And what I was getting to is, I don't think Little Big Planet demos well.
That's of course. I was just explaining to Simon that when you have a bunch of equipment hooked up and trying to stream something out, and also playing it through all into a projector, there's always extreme latency. When I was in college, we had a video game club, and we hooked up to a projector. There was latency there because they were a machine to the projector to everything else. And so apparently they said behind closed doors to people that they were demoing Little Big Planet 3 to, they were having some of the same problems. It's because there's this huge amount of latency that they could not time their jumps and things like that. But yeah, Little Big Planet 3 is totally...
Little Big Planet is
1 and 2.
That's, like, respect to your point, Little Big Planet is boring, and they played the game for too long.
You guys brought it up. I didn't want to talk about Little Big Planet 3. What are we doing talking about Little Big Planet on an RPG podcast?
Fantastic, is what I'm saying.
I'm saying the show was solid, and the first-party lineups are bad.
If all you saw at E3 was just the press conferences,
I saw the Treehouse, I saw the streams. Like, I think the best thing that I got out of it was possibly some of the trailers were surprisingly good this year.
Mm-hmm.
I got to play a lot of these games, and I would respectfully disagree. I think there's actually a lot of really good games coming out this year. It's some that trickled, of course, into 2015.
Which sucks.
Obviously. There's still some pretty good games coming out this year, and I think there's still a lot of games yet to be announced that they're saving for Gamescom and Tokyo Game Show.
Let me ask you this.
But
what was your game of the show for you? What was the game of the show for you?
Witcher 3. Absolutely Witcher 3. I think that, just like last year, it was my game of show in E3 2012, and this year...
Yeah, Witcher 3 had a really strong showing. It actually had that, badass trailer a couple of days before E3.
Yeah.
And then, at E3, it was at both the Microsoft conference
and
Was that Sony as well? I don't.
No, wait. No,
Yes.
it was not.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was just
But,
Microsoft.
but it had like a fully playable demo, right? And you saw that?
Yeah, they played in front of people. That was real nice, by the way.
I mean, Zach, did you see the Witcher 3 demo?
Yes. Simon apparently was there too. No, I did get to see it. So, sorry, it's been a long time. But anyway,
I mean, Witcher 3 has obviously been in development for a while, so it's not like it's like a brand new announcement that surprised us. But I felt like, considering it's coming out, it was delayed into 2015, but it had like a really strong showing, and it kind of showed up in many places. So, what did you see, and what did you think of it?
So the demo that they showed us. So once again, the demo was in this small enclosed room where they were giving everyone Polish beer, and it's like, hey guys, grab some of these, get in the back. And so
bribery.
Everyone's sitting.
Bribery.
Whenever they show a Witcher game, CD Projekt Red hands out Polish beer.
No. Last
they did
year's
that last
E3 post-mortem E3 podcast was Zach was bribed at the Witcher 3 demo with beer. Just saying.
It happened again.
I didn't drink any of the beer last year. Actually, it's Alex did totally. But he actually got like 4 or 5. He took a lot home with him. Like he had some in his bag. Totally stole a bunch of beer. But anyway, actually it was more like they were just giving away. But so yeah, the demo this year started immediately after the big Griffin fight that people saw in that trailer, that big presentation at the Microsoft conference. And so he's there, and so obviously what happened was that, so he takes the Griffin's head and he exchanges it to this guy that's there for information. It kind of escapes me right now what it's the overarching story, trying to find somebody that this like Witcher, one of the few Witcher that left. You know, obviously like a lot of their kind was died off, but they still still exist. And so there's this Witcher, the female. So it's not Triss, it's this other girl entirely. So he exchanges it for information, and then he basically goes off to find this. Apparently, this child that was seen knows information leading to her whereabouts, and so he goes out. So obviously, when you go, the first thing you see is like this small village of people that there's obviously a lot of activity going on, and so in order to fast travel, you have to go to like this end of this bridge, and then there's like these signposts, you know, that point different directions, and that's where you click on that, and then you can go into these different locations. And so he's like around the top of the map, and then he basically fast travels to a pretty far distance south, and then he appears in that area. And so he pulls up the map, tells us wherever we've been, and he just runs to the top of this hill, and he does the whole next-gen thing. He's like, you see this tree that's extremely far off in the distance. He's like, okay, that tree, this is something we'll have to go to later in the game. You know that town we were at? It's 14 times past that point. I'm like, holy crap. just blows your mind how gigantic this world that they've created is. And obviously it's up to them how packed it can be, what they can do as far as content-wise. But
just if there's like no content in between it, I feel like that's the thing that worries me most.
Did they discuss density? That's my biggest question. Because at this point, I personally don't need a game to be any bigger than like GTA 5 or Skyrim. If it even has to be that big, game worlds and open world games need to be more dense. So did they talk about that?
Well, so, I mean, there's a couple things you can believe with these guys. It's the fact that they're already building off a strong combat system, which is something that the Elder Scrolls series has a lot of trouble with. So they've gotten a strong foundation as far as the gameplay aspect. Now, when it comes to the story content, this is something that they kind of showed last year as well. It's that the main story missions and the side quests weave together very well. And so going to this town, he shows up in this like very small, like remote, once again a village, not quite as like structured like the previous town that he was at, the small village area where it just seems like built into the side of a hill kind of thing. And he meets the town elder, which the guy looks like he's like 40, so I found it kind of weird meeting this guy. But he says, I saw this little boy run around, and then he basically runs off, goes through the forest, encounters some monsters along the way, and the combat's kind of cool because it's very dynamic the way he changes between his melee combat using like the regular weapon and the silver sword, which is better against the monsters, versus the regular weapon, which is good against the humans. And there's like bandits everywhere, so you run it across people just trying to kill them to steal money.
So it sounds like there's going to be wide open. It sounds like there's going to be towns and Witcher combat and wide open spaces with nothing doing. Cool.
No, I would disagree. It's actually there's actually a lot of like spots like he's run around and like this, people walking around being attacked. There's like, of course, a lot of quests that can be given inside these towns, things like that. They didn't go too deep into the what's going to be happening in this world. I would only assume that they needed the extra time because they needed to come up with more content. But as far as the actual gameplay part of it, which is something I'm more interested in than, say, like, doing millions of missions.
Well, see, here's the thing. I'm not interested in doing millions of missions, but it worries me that when they show this game, this isn't one of their focal points in saying there's a density to the world. It worries me that that's not something that they want to push on you, because, as much as we like to, joke about Ubisoft and mission markers until the cows come home, when Rockstar was promoting Red Dead Redemption, remember, it was a Western and it had all these open spaces in it, they were very adamant in saying, but it's going to be dense, you're going to be running across random encounters, things are going to happen in the world. You're never really going to just, like, roam across the prairie for, like, 20 minutes without at least seeing something that you can engage with. So it worries me that, the Witcher guys are saying, we've got, our world is 16 times bigger than Skyrim, but they're not following that sentence up with, and every, like, mile and a half is going to be something that you can interact with. Because if it's not like that, I don't need the world to be that big. I'm just going to be using, fast travel, like, as soon as I can, whenever I can.
Well, I mean, the whole point
that's what
that
they
made
too, but like at the same time, like if they're gonna fill it, I guarantee you. It's called Wild Hunt, so you're gonna be hunting stuff. I just don't want to if the world is that huge, there needs to be just as much variety of things.
One thing they mentioned actually in the interview that Alex had with Teixeira, what was his name?
The visual effects guy,
Jose Teixeira. He said like almost everything is customized, like. They were very hesitant to even try to cleverly reuse assets and things. So they, I guess, tried to minimize that and did a ton of, like, custom areas, so they really don't have much reuse at all. Mm-hmm. So I suppose that, hopefully, that has nothing to do with density or anything like that, but in terms of, like, areas not looking similar to each other, having more of a unique, world here, that's at least... sounds good, at least what he's saying. We'll just have to see what that results in.
Yeah, I'm sure the world is going to look nice and everything, but I mean, we're at the point where, like, it's not the previous generation, it's not the PS2 generation anymore. I'm not interested in I really have no interest in open worlds being any bigger than what they are right now. I want them to have things in them, and I want them to feel, like there's actually a world, and that's what density sort of does for the world. There's got to be some sort of a circulation happening, and it is Wild Hunt, so hopefully they've got, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Not ecology. And hopefully there's animals and stuff. There's like life cycles and stuff, and you can
ecosystem.
An ecosystem. There we go. Hopefully there's an ecosystem in place for stuff like that. Like, I'm sure it's going to look nice, and I'm sure, like, when you're in town, it's going to be gorgeous. But I mean, I just don't need a 2,400 square foot meadow or whatever if there's just nothing to do in the meadow.
No, I completely understand. That's part of the thing that's what makes Crysis awesome. Is that Crysis did that. Like, Crysis was extremely massive in scope for an FPS, but there was a ton of stuff to do as well. It wasn't just go around and kill things. It was just it had meaningful content.
Right.
But this is something that they showed last year as well. It's that everything's weaved into each other. It's not that go here, this marker, done, it doesn't affect anything around it. It's that everything's weaved together. It's like you're going on a main mission story, and then something happens. Like what happened last year was that so he's trying to track down somebody, just like before. Can I talk?
To be fair, showing that the world is very large and showing that it's dense most of the way or all the way through, that's something that's difficult to show in a demo or anything like that. You're going to need a longer play session to really see that. So
you only show one particular session.
You can only show one session, and I mean, I understand that, but it's like I'm concerned that it's not a selling point for them. It's not something that they're out there saying like,
Are you talking about the size of the world? Because that's totally been the vision from the beginning.
The density of the world, not just I know that they're going around here. Oh,
that is the focus.
That's not what I'm hearing.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
That is totally the focus.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the quotes that I've been hearing from them is stuff like, our world is 16 times bigger than Skyrim, and not our world is dotted with little events and things happening to keep you interested. I'm not hearing the second part.
That is totally what they've been talking since the beginning, though. Because last year, during the demo, they specifically pointed out that Skyrim has a big world, but there's nothing to do in it. And so our goal, they pretty much said that their goal with Witcher 3 is to create a world that is alive with a lot of content that is weaved together, as I mentioned, that feels like there's a lot of stuff to do and you never feel bored at any point. There's no dead spots. There's nothing that just felt like out of place. The world is organic. There's the story content, like I said, is controlled, but it never stays on one straight path, and you want to go through the story. The thing with Skyrim or the Elder Scrolls series, is that you have this giant playground, and the main story just falls by the wayside. You don't want to go through that, and also with like the Fallout games too. So with Witcher, and this is something that Witcher 2 was good at, Witcher 1 did a good job at. Obviously, they're not quite, obviously, on the same size, speaking of which, but this is something that, if you think about it, they were going to get to this point anyway of creating a giant game that they've always wanted to. It's that they wanted to create this big world, an organic world that you can go do these things, and there's always something to do at any point, so you don't feel like you always are controlled by this one quest or something. There's no markers and things like that. I don't know if there's something that you could toggle to turn on markers and things like that. I assume so, because there's plenty of evidence in Witcher 2 that you could do that.
And even if there are things to do, quote, I hope it doesn't fall into like the Ubisoft style where it's just like, oh, go to this point and clear it, or whatever that would mean, like killing some enemies or taking a base, and then like it's cleared off your map, and then now there's nothing there. Or anything like that.
It's so like 4 different variety of like mission types,
right? And repeating them. So that's something that I mean, I know the CD Projekt team is saying a lot of things that sound good. But like I said, it's a hard.
But that's what they've always
right.
been doing,
so I mean, it's just one of those things that it remains to be seen, and it's one of those things that. Right, it's one of those things that you really won't be able to see until it's out and you can play it for an extended period of time.
The thing with Witcher 3, and I think it would benefit a lot, and this might be sort of an unintended segue, is like it's like they need to do like the exact same thing they did with like Destiny. Like I was really unsold on that game about a lot of what it was saying until I actually had the chance of sitting down and playing it, and I'm like, holy shit, this game is absolutely fantastic. Like, the controls are great, the shooting is great, the mission structure is great. How it weaves me into players' world like Dark Souls does is actually absolutely amazing. And I was not bought into the scope of this game at all, or what Bungie was saying, until I actually had a chance to play it. So I think Witcher 3 would actually benefit a lot if it had, like, maybe
you're not going to see a beta or an alpha or anything like that.
But there's a number of games in that same situation as Destiny and Witcher 3 and stuff. They have Gamescom for that. Like most games talking about that will be playable to the public at Gamescom, and then the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is being served at Gamescom.
But what I feel like with Witcher 3 is that, at least with CD Projekt, is that for people who are fans of their games, that they're going to deliver on combat, they're going to deliver a really well told story with interesting characters. And that's really the most, as far as like a foundation, that's what I want. But when it comes to a dense world, it's like, I'm not going to go to every single corner of the world expecting like huge amounts of content, stuff like that. As long as the main story is well done and that there's plenty of content on the side that works well together. And from what I saw on that behind closed doors demo of how they presented both the main story missions and all this side content, and just the look of it, the how great it looks, how fluid it looked, even as a very early game, I mean, there was still there was some slight frame rate issues, but that was probably the most you could say bad about that game. It's just incredible how deep it got. They showed in the demo at the conference that you shoot a the Griffin got shot, and then blood trail. You had to follow the blood trail. If you missed, if you couldn't see it anymore, and you could track them all the way back, and they all have their own manners, their own behavior, all this stuff, and it's as far as on the technical level, they've done obviously it seems like a lot of work on that. Yeah, sure, of course, it's up to them to create a world that's dense enough to be interesting, but at the same time, I mean, I could personally feel part of it is I didn't really play Skyrim because I was kind of intimidated just by how the world could be built like that. But with The Witcher 3, coming off of Witcher 2, I feel that I know at least they have a strong foundation, and I know going into this that the stuff that I personally care about, I think that my expectations for that might be met, but it's obviously you got to play the game before you can tell what's going to be. But that's with any game.
Demo.
You're not going to get a demo.
But I
no, it's not an open world RPG. You're never going to get one
with my size. Huge open world games is to this generation what amazing graphical leaps to last generation was, where we're gonna see some games use it to kind of slip in the other areas and kind of use it as a selling point. But I mean, I'll tell you, that first time you roam around, anything like GTA 5, the open world, that first time you roam around, it's great. It looks super realistic. It totally looks like LA. It's great. But the fourth time, I'm sitting there in traffic because the world is so huge and realistic. It's lame. I mean, I don't that's what I'm saying. I don't want to wander through that 1,600 square foot meadow or whatever 1,000 times. I'm gonna do that one time and look at it in awe at the world they created, and every other time I'm going to use fast travel, and that to me is sort of a design failing. So that's what I'm saying. That there's actual stuff in the world and it feels lively, and it's not just this world is huge because we know that the huge worlds are cool.
But there's plenty of things to do in this world too. I mean, they've already showed a method to travel. You can get on a boat, you can fly, you can ride a horse to get there faster, you can fast travel. There's plenty of places in this world that you can climb up. But there's also these interesting mechanics you can fight underwater. You can actually go underwater and fight these giant monsters below there. There's going to be places underneath there. The towns, they've already shown up the towns. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of people in these towns that are crawling with activity, with a lot of stuff to do. And
great to me. I don't know why. I'm just it's going to be another
does.
I'm afraid that this is going to be another
You're putting a lot of weight on something that you've only seen some trailers for. I'm talking about the demo.
I know, but I'm just afraid that this is going to turn out to be another Assassin's Creed 3 because
it's not. Why would you think that?
Why would I think that?
I'm just because it's an open world game.
That's the only thing I'm hearing is because it's an open world game. I don't.
And the way CD Projekt has touted the game, they've touted it like Ubisoft did.
They've done that with every game they put out.
Ubisoft does not have the hype or the pedigree that CD Projekt has, but still, I feel like this is a massive undertaking. And yes, they showed off quite a bit. They're delaying it so they can polish things up. I'm still afraid that this game is going to have so much stuff that it's not going to have depth to its gameplay, and it's just going to fall apart. It's going to be a mixed mash of stuff, because that's what Assassin's Creed 3 was.
But wait, what are we arguing here for? Because I'm hearing it needs to be dense, but then I'm hearing that it shouldn't be that dense.
Content.
Yes.
That's obviously the goal of anyone who's making an open world game. We're talking about stuff that's obvious.
It is obvious, but just because it's obvious doesn't mean they're going to actually follow through with it. Obviously, Ubisoft they touted it and they obviously recognized it, but they failed up on the execution. And Assassin's Creed 3 is by fans one of the worst entries in the entire franchise. It's just
But Assassin's Creed 4 was alright. But it's obviously, that's the pressure, to create a world that's, as you said, meaningful. And that's the goal of anyone who's making these games, and even Rockstar has trouble with that. So it's not like everyone who goes out to make these games, the first thing they think is a quick cash in. That was 10 years ago when GTA 3 came out. Everyone was putting out an open world game. But clearly, people nowadays don't buy into that as much. So Yeah, of course. The pressure is on to execute their plan well, and so, but by what they're showing in the demo and the trailers, the stuff that I got to see. Granted, it was only a 45-minute demo this time, just like last time. But from what they've shown, the growth from Witcher 2 to Witcher 3,
and I
think
the game looks cool too. I hope it's good. It's what's the frame rate? Is it 30? I was just curious. What's the frame rate going to be? 30 on consoles?
I don't know. I don't know that.
You mentioned it had frame problems, and I was because I see it coach.
It's not. It's because it's likely an older build that they brought.
Right. Okay.
It looks good. I'm excited to play it.
Yeah.
This is the last thing I'll say about it. My only problem with it is that it's open world, and there's so many things that can go wrong with open world. I'm afraid of the things that will happen. That's it.
How many open world games do you play though?
I play a ton of open world games. I love open world games.
I'm just asking. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm asking
a ton of open world games. I love open world games. I love Infamous. I love Prototype. I love playing GTA. I love playing Red Dead was one of my favorite open world games last year. I loved Assassin's Creed even though it played like garbage.
Red Dead was fine, but Red Dead Redemption had the same problem where it was a lot of places.
Well, and Infamous definitely had the problem where you kind of do the same things over and over again.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I'm really excited for Witcher 3. It's just kind of there's so many things that can go wrong with open worlds.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I personally don't really play open world games too much because I don't like how it deviates completely from the main story, and there's no real character development. But the fact that I enjoyed Witcher 2 so much, my opinion is that I enjoyed Witcher 2 so much that my feelings for Witcher 3, of course, are strong just because I'm going from it. Obviously, with anyone, the whole point of Witcher 3 is that they're trying to make it easy for newcomers to enjoy the game as well. So trying to appease all these people.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It looks good. I hope it's good. It's out in February. It's good that they delayed it because Dragon Age
early next year is absolutely
this holiday season.
No, I can tell you one thing. EA was probably shaking in the boots.
I guarantee you they were not. I guarantee you they were not.
Inquisition looks very.
I guarantee you they were not. Inquisition would have ate that game's lunch this holiday season.
No.
It's very good that they delayed it, and I hope it's good. And I think it's time that we move on. Witcher 3. Good luck to you.
We're talking about Witcher 2 came out. Dragon Age 2 failed. Okay. So it's
Dragon Age 2 still sold really well.
Yeah, Dragon Age 2 is actually a good selling game.
They still are worried about. There was an article that came out long ago.
I think it sold 3 million copies. Witcher 2 sold 4 million after a long time through Steam sales.
Yeah, I think we're vastly underestimating marketing.
You're talking about
Dragon Age IP. It would ate that game's lunch, but that's neither here nor there.
You're talking about going from Witcher 2 to Witcher 3 versus Dragon Age 2.
We're not talking about the quality of the game. We're talking about the sales.
Yeah.
Why focus just on sales? Because we're talking about Resident Evil 6, the best
fantastic
game in the series.
Resident Evil 6. Inquisition looks like a fantastic game. Yeah.
All right, we're all talking over each other, so let's move on. So, okay, so after Witcher 3, I don't know how much more you guys are focused on the E3 stuff. I did get to see some of the other Namco stuff. So, is there any particular games you guys were interested in from E3? I can talk about
I want to know what your opinion of Hearts and Exilia 2 were.
Well, I played only a little bit of both at the Namco booth. They did have them both. Well, Hearts was not on the show floor. Hearts was behind closed doors at the Namco booth, who, as you can tell, part of the reason why E3 felt kind of empty, well, at least when I was there, it felt empty, is because Tecmo, Namco, and some others, they all had permanent meeting rooms upstairs, and so they didn't have exhibits there. So a lot of their big games weren't there. But Hearts, it felt like slightly up-res PSP game. It didn't look that great. It didn't look that great, but then it's a Vita game, and to be fair, I wasn't looking at a Vita screen playing it. It was put it up to a monitor, but it's completely Japanese. There's no dub option at all, and so if you're cool with that, then
actually,
you might. It felt like Graces. It felt like Graces on.
I know there's been there's been some videos that Namco posted for Hearts, and the translation is kind of awkward.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. Like the localizations.
They changed even just kind of like hard things. Like they changed the names of the characters in the text, but that's not reflected in what they're actually saying, like in Japanese.
Or it's not consistent in the Tales verse at all. For that
and
matter.
right, yeah, and things like skill names aren't consistent, which is some people may not care, but some people that's a big deal.
Not even that, but like naming conventions. Like you remember, like in Grace's F, when you're in Zone Cage, one of the boss fights is Amber, which in Japanese is Kohawk, but in the Vita version, it's not Amber, it's Kohawk. So I'm like, what?
Right, like
it's kind of hard to follow guides, I guess, with that.
The character is right. I forgot about that. She's a cameo in Grace's as a boss, but the name is different now. But it's the same character. Yeah. So
is it the same character design?
Yeah, I think it's the same character.
Yeah, it's the exact same character.
Okay.
Just a cameo. Like they had a cameo before, and now in the game that she's actually from, the name is different.
Yeah, and then what's it called?
You think they would go back and play these games before they do it?
Meteorite is now called Meteor Core, Core Meteor, who the why?
I think that sounds like that's the result of getting different firms to localize these things because
not 8.4.
And 8.4's worked on a couple of them, but this one's not 8.4.
So. Yeah, I have a feeling that this one was because when they did a quick Twitter vote on JRPG Vita, Tales of Hearts was the winner, if you call it a winner. Yeah, so that might have
no Vesperia PS3.
That might have prompted Sony to support in some way, maybe very quickly or cheaply, to get it out. And it seems like because they're not dubbing it, that they're and the localization quality seems to be iffy, that they just kind of wanted to get it out as cheaply as possible.
I guarantee you, it's an internal Sony localization team working on this. I guarantee it.
They're probably doing it. They were probably taking care of that.
I said this before. I guarantee you, Namco is not publishing this localization fully. There's no way they are, because they're not.
Right.
You'd have to be out of your mind to publish this in this day and age.
I don't know.
Probably doing this along with Freedom Wars and Orishika, and they just didn't, that. It's just the one that they're working on that we don't know officially that they're working on. But that's probably the directive in the office is okay, we're doing Tales and Orishika and Freedom Wars.
And it sounds good on paper, look at all these people looking for Tales. Hey, if we release it, yay!
Right, totally.
Yeah, people will buy it. I'll buy it, even though it's shitty. I will buy it.
That's the thing. Let's not trivialize the fact that I'm sure there's a lot of Hearts fans out there. It's not just because we don't have that. It's Baba said himself. He's when he went to these different conventions, people were excited about that game, and they kept asking him to localize it. So it's not it's all in a vacuum. There's plenty of demand. I think it's because there's no. I mean, you can make the argument that it's because there's no Tales presence on the Vita like there was on the PSP.
There's no known presence on the Vita. Period.
But of course that's why Hearts is there. But I did not get to play Hearts that much. It was mostly David. But from what I got to play of Hearts, it felt like another Tales game. I mean, I didn't really focus too much on the dialogue. I played a little bit of the combat. It felt much like a Tales game, do the combo, hit circle, and then up and down and all that stuff. It felt like a Tales game on the Vita. It didn't. It felt like it's just another game that they pumped out.
I mean, I think Sony, for the Vita in general, they're releasing in the U.S. Freedom Wars or Ashika. They released Soul Sacrifice Delta recently, and they have Tales coming out. Right. So, and then that's kind of one half of it is this Japanese game support, and then for
the niche market, they're trying to get the machine.
Totally cool.
The other half is, of course, indie support, which lots of indie games are available on Vita.
I am.
So that's kind of that seems to be basically Sony's. And then Yoshida say something something kind of questionable, it's up to third parties to support Vita, Sony.
No, it's that they're drawing down first party support, but there's still. I mean, I made that list not too long ago of 30 RPGs coming for the Vita this year. So it's not, and that was a couple months ago. But that was just the PSP. But the PSP had great third party games. I did not buy a Vita for Sony's first party. That's not the reason I bought it. I bought it for the RPGs.
It's more of a niche machine than the PSP was.
It's more like a what?
It's a machine for a niche audience, an extremely niche audience.
I'm a niche gamer.
I'm saying, and because of that, they're not because they believe it is a niche audience, and it is indeed a niche audience. They don't think they need to put the quality and effort to maintain
into the games,
for the games, and it's suffering, and it really sucks for the people who are really in love with the series, whether it be Tales or whether
feel like they have to settle, basically.
Yeah, and it sucks. They have to settle. Because if they don't buy these, they are not going to get any games.
Right. And especially because that's kind of the status.
It's a cycle.
And that's like the status quo with niche games, whether it's on PS3 or whatever. I mean, you look at anything that's made by like Compile Heart or Idea Factory or whoever's making it. Like that's the quo. This has low production values. We don't have to spend that much money on this. We just get it out, and they're going to buy it no matter what because they're loyalists and they're going to.
I would make the argument that the Compile Heart games may not be that great, but the Gus games that they put out are actually incredibly complex. But it's at the same time, it's that like the Vita that I use my Vita way more than my consoles, and none of my games that I have on there are Sony games. It's like all these third-party games, and like the games that are coming out this year and next year are games being localized from like Xseed, Axis,
I agree.
Atlas. Stuff like that. So it's like these games that are going to be brought over that Japanese developers are making games for, they're not really going to care too much if Sony's slowly pulling back the support because they have the PS4 that's extremely successful right now. And so, but once you have remote play, and then you have, also the Vita TV is coming out this fall, and so there's still PlayStation TV, excuse me,
with extremely limited title availability, by the way.
What? There's limited title availability. Yeah.
I would assume once it gets here, they'll start supporting, putting more effort into that. Yeah. It's, why would they support a new product that failed?
There's a reason why it's called PlayStation TV and not not the Vita TV, bro.
And I'm pretty sure that when
it's more brand recognition.
Vita and Adam Boyes went on Giant Bomb's evening show, I'm pretty sure she was straight up said like, "Oh, it's the Vita TV just in U.S. packaging and it says PlayStation TV on it." Like I don't think there's like a brand recognition plan for the U.S. launch or anything. It's just instead of having to import this, you can go get it at Best Buy, but it is the same gadget. So.
But to be fair, in Japan, you can make the argument that part of the problem is that it was called the Vita TV, which people would say. You would bring up in a conversation Vita TV. Oh, I mean the PlayStation Vita TV. So you put PlayStation TV.
Admitting that there's a stigma with the Vita name.
I would say marketing 101. The name matters.
Yeah,
like the Wii U. The Wii and the Wii U.
It's not.
So are we approaching this positively or negatively? Negative would be like, oh, they purposely avoided Vita because Vita is detrimentary to the name,
I would not say a death sentence.
Or did they decide to go positively and we should use PlayStation because everyone knows what PlayStation is?
I think this
you say it the PlayStation family. The PlayStation family
isn't going to take off. I would say that I think to put the Vita name on it would probably be a death sentence. And I think even without it, just calling it PlayStation TV, it's probably not going to take off. Most of the size stuff that they do that's not a console.
I think the naming has a lot to do with what they believe the feature set is going to entail. Because when we thought Vita TV, we knew what we were going to get with the Vita TV in the sense that you're going to be able to play Vita games on your television screen. You do not need to play...
And you can remote play PS4. That's also pretty damn awesome.
Okay, see, that's what I'm getting into. Here, they're labeling it the PlayStation TV, not because the focus is that you can play Vita games on your TV. You can connect all your Sony console modules onto that PlayStation TV hub. So that's why I'm under the belief that this is not going to have the extensive Vita title support.
Right, exactly, yeah. I'm on the same page.
The branding has a lot to do with what they want to get out of it. It's not just the simple
I think you're reading way too deep into this.
Stigmatism of, the Vita thing carries negative connotation. That's not all. It's not like Final Fantasy 13 where everyone thinks the thing sucks. No one thinks the Vita actually sucks. I mean, it's a great piece of hardware. It just doesn't have a lot of games for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might be reading too deep into it.
I think he's right on the money. I love the Vita also. It is a great system, and I think everybody who has one does think highly of it. But I mean, they are right to not make that the crux of their marketing with the PlayStation TV if they want it to be a thing that succeeds. Because I mean, Vita has had adverts. It's had it had Call of Duty on it. It's had games and stuff on it.
I just hate this.
And it didn't take. And so if they call it the PS Vita TV again, it's just going to be that's a new iteration of the Vita. I mean, when Nintendo, when they put out a new DS or a new Game Boy, it always takes because people like those brands. The Vita has not taken. So if they put out another Vita thing with that in the title, well, what do you think is going to happen?
Right.
I just think that there's a lot of evidence that, like, personally, like, I could care less what the mass market thinks. Like, the games that I play are not mass market released. I review compile heart games.
I
they're big. But no, let me finish. It's that,
though, like, what Simon's getting at. Okay, let me go first, and then you can finish. I think we should care. We definitely should care for the continued well-being of Sony, so they can keep making the games that we like and we can keep playing them. You should definitely care, like, how they're doing with the mass market.
But not even with the PSP, where there are, like, big Sony games that I cared about. Like, when I owned the PSP, and the PSP sold very well. Like, as much as people like to put it down, that thing sold like over 80 million units. So but the fact that you're seeing a lot of localization announcements for Vita games, it shows that, you know, they care more about it. And that
builds your niche market.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
That's fine,
right.
and that's all I care about.
You're not going to get the support that you want out of the Vita, the PlayStation TV, because the focus contradicts what they're supporting.
The PlayStation TV, putting the PlayStation TV aside, it's with the Vita that I'm already very happy with the...
You're going to buy the PlayStation TV because you like the Vita. Sony's going to try to sell it to people because they like PlayStation and because they have a PS4. That's
what's wrong with that?
Because they're not going to show support for the Vita title.
They're not going to be focusing on the Vita. You can buy one and
that doesn't matter. It's like,
oh my god!
No, it doesn't, because that's not what made the PSP great to me.
So we talked about some of the Vita games coming out, like in English. Like there's Natural Doctrine, that's of course on other consoles. There's Freedom Wars, there's Orishika, there's Tales of Hearts. Are any of those playable on PlayStation TV?
That remains to be seen.
Yeah.
So if they're not, they fucked
up. It's Freedom Wars. They've demoed it on the Vita TV. Freedom Wars is totally okay.
Freedom Wars,
they showed it at TGS.
But I guarantee you, not every single game on the Vita is going to be compatible, and they didn't want to get the mixed message out there saying, it's like, hey, why aren't some of my Vita games working on my Vita TV?
Right.
Like, they don't want to go through that shit. What company wants to go through that?
Who's to say that the Vita support translates to PlayStation TV support? Because it's software, isn't it? Like, the software depends on not the games. I'm talking about the software that goes into the PlayStation TV, like the firmware and stuff like that.
The patch list, the list of games compatible. I don't think they're going to invest the money to do that.
Yeah, they could be. They have other plans.
There's a much bigger reason now.
I think their thinking is going to be all the engineers that we could put on making more Vita games for the PlayStation TV. Those are the guys that we need to have cracking on that firmware that's going to make it so you can stream PlayStation 4 games to a whole other room from where your PS4 is. Like that's the firmware that we need out there on the PlayStation TV, because again in the West that's what we're selling the thing on, PlayStation TV. Vita game compatibility, that's not priority.
But when they introduced the PlayStation TV at the Sony conference, the first thing they talked about was Vita games, PSP games, PS1 Classics, and then also support. The PS4 stuff didn't even come until like late in the game, like a couple months ago.
No, they announced that was going to be part of the feature.
They announced it, but they didn't actually put it in.
They announced it. They said that was going to be a feature at TTS when they first showed the thing.
Yeah, but they didn't actually put it in until like a couple months ago. Like it wasn't even a thing you could do.
That was like the whole selling point.
They just put it in like a couple months ago, I'm thinking.
The streaming support.
Yeah, like it was the screen that it came.
Wait, are you talking about a remote?
Yeah, they had to patch.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they did patch.
Yeah.
But
well, it's you know, and at the end of the day, it's like, you know, I'm not that invested in the PlayStation TV because once again, I like the idea of being able to, like when I review games, like when I was playing Monster Monkeys, it was nice just laying down. Playing a game, or go on the road playing a game on the Vita, and then coming home doing something else.
Yeah,
on the
but
TV.
just because you don't care doesn't mean it's not going to screw the mass market over, which is what we're discussing. Like it's like there's a reason why there's a name change. Like it's not just a simple, oh hey, we're going to name it something else, and it doesn't mean anything. Like it totally means something.
Honestly,
everything that Sony,
the mass market
does that is not a console.
Because the mass market is almost always wrong. So
the mass market is wrong. Says the 12 billion people who bought a Wii out there, like. And why the Wii U's not
they're wrong.
Why the 3DS and
the Wii, the people who bought the Wii put them in the closet.
The mass market's always wrong. Oh no.
So speaking of
whether they're right or wrong, They matter.
Yeah,
whether they're right or wrong, they matter.
So speaking of Vita, Zach, did you play any other Vita titles that you were
thought were cool?
In? Yeah.
Well, let's see. Well, I'm trying to think of like the different Vita games. Well, of course, seeing Exceed and Nisa at E3, they did show a lot of games there. I got to just to put on the side. I played some Project Diva.
Okay. That's Sega.
Did you play?
I know. I was just saying like off the side. I got to play that. That was pretty great.
Or was it just the Vita version?
Both. They Sony's area had the Vita versions. The Sega booth had both.
Were on the F2nd?
You
can't even say the names.
The World Is Mine? Is that it? Yeah, they had that. A couple other songs, but I'm blanking on it. But The World Is Mine was
an extremely underappreciated game. I feel like, and that's part of it.
No, absolutely.
It's visual aesthetics, and I'm really sad because
the fact that it did so well that they're bringing over the sequel just says a lot,
It did
and that's a good sign.
I think it broke even.
Yeah.
Probably.
I think they said it did better than broke even, but anyway, so that's.
I mean, they
got Sonic Boom. They have Sonic Boom coming out this year.
Not Ishin.
Sonic Boom's coming out this year. You gotta be excited for that.
You definitely do not have to be excited for Sonic Boom.
The Wii U version was kind of but the 3DS version of that game seems okay. But it's like Sonic Colors on the 3DS, but. Yeah, I don't expect a lot. But anyway, not until Sonic Adventure 3. But anyway, so putting that aside, Xseed, of course, they were showing, Xseed they showed, let's see here, Akiba's Trip 2, which is, what is it, Undead and Undressed. Yeah, here, they showed Shinobi Versus, the Dynasty Warriors Senran Kagura game.
Wait. So I know they had two Senran Kagura games. Did you tell producers that those games are totally gross?
They're not my thing.
What? Oh, we're not going to go into this conversation about fans.
We're not talking about. I'm just asking if you happen to mention that.
No, I don't touch that with like a 20-foot pole just because like everyone's unique. I think it's kind of silly how people try to push their own feelings about what people should and should not be disturbed by on other people. But anyway, let's not talk about that. That's a whole different conversation. But that and Bon Appetit, which is the music rhythm food making game with Senran Kagura characters.
Amazing. This game sounds amazing.
It's pretty great. So with Bon Appetit, it's really over the top.
I remember seeing a comment by the director guy, whatever his name is, like, oh, the girls like spilled chocolate on themselves.
Oh, never mind.
They do.
Interstellarly lost.
Can we not? Hey, we just said we're not going to talk about it.
Never mind. Interstellarly lost. Damn it. It sounded awesome. And then
that is not how the game goes. Okay. Let me talk about the game before you guys go off on a different tangent here. It's not. I'll tell you how my demo went with that game. Okay. So it's not an RPG. So talking about this, I'll be very brief. And so it's straight up rhythm-based game. It's like you're tapping buttons and using the directional pad and like tapping on the screen. It's like two different horizontal paths that go across the screen, and you're supposed to tap it on the timing. Like you press up, circle, A or B. It's on the 3DS, so it's clearly kind of different. But playing that game, it was actually kind of cool. And then at the end of each thing, it was like Iron Chef. Like you had to make a few meals, and then you made like the big meal at the end that it was like rounds. Not quite Iron Chef, I guess. It would be actually a poor comparison. But like the guy that would eat the meal at the end, it was apparent. Like I forget the main character, the main character's father. Who's like this master shinobi character. He eats the food, and he's like his eyes go like really wide, and like a big explosion, like fireworks everywhere. It's really over the top, and it was actually kind of fun to play just for the mechanics alone. But and Shinobi Versus is very much like Dynasty Warriors, going around huge beat 'em up characters. It's got some RPG mechanics, just like Dynasty Warriors, leveling characters, things like that. It was kind of cool. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time with that game too, just because like there's so many different combinations of moves you could use on characters. They have things like using ninja scrolls to unleash powerful attacks, and then there's even like more crazier attacks that can use like a character who can just pull out a sword and then just like a million slices across the screen. It's kind of cool. But the main game that they were showing was Akiba's Trip 2.
Actually,
and Story of Seasons. I played Story of Seasons.
Actually, it seems to be putting a bunch of focus on Akiba's Trip.
Yeah. It's huge. It's amazing how much content's in that game.
What's the
It's
for this
totally.
Game? I forgot, because this is 2 technically, but it's the first one in America, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's Undead Unaddressed. But they said that apparently it is the sequel. So they told me at the beginning of the whole meeting, it's like the only similarity is that I think there's like a couple returning characters, but they talk about it at the beginning of the game. Other than that, it's really its own thing. So it's Akihabara completely recreated. There are places that you can actually go into, these different stores and things like that. So like the Sega, what's it called? Arcades. The Sega arcade thing. I'm blanking on it. Is that what it's called? The Sega arcade place. Anyway, so I'm talking with like experts here.
No, he's talking about. I guess there's some iconic Sega, iconic arcade that Sega happens to own in Akihabara.
There is. There's a Sega building in Akihabara.
Yeah, the Sega Arcade or whatever it's called.
It's just called the Sega building.
Oh, well, anyway, so there's places you can go to, and oh god, I gotta look this up. This is bothering the crap out of me.
I've been to Akihabara, but it's just the Sega building.
It's not called the Sega building. It's got like a.
Oh, they have an arcade
name.
there. Is the name relevant? Tell us about the game. Sega has an arcade there. Fine. All right. You can go and probably play it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's call it. It's a Sega Arcade. It's actually what it's called, Sega Arcade. But anyway, you can go in there. You can play like UFO machines, play different arcade games. Actually, play arcade games in there, and that's pretty cool. But there's all these different places you can go to. Not every place is accessible, but a lot of it's recreated. There's even advertisements and things like that. Like during loading screens, they would pull up this advertisement for the specific store or something like that, actually located there, and it was like they couldn't translate it because having to go through all those licensing deals would be a headache. But they had characters like Supersonico, they had like characters from famous anime all over the place, even the big ones like the shonen anime, just all over the place, and it was really cool to see that kind of stuff just running around the stores. The combat, straight up brawler, you're run around. The way to interact with other people is by bumping into them. And so, like, at one point, he told me to bump into this girl, and then she's like, hey, do you want to come to this store that's back here? And she leads me around, and she takes me to this place, this fancy place that sells art. And so he tells me about the story about how this is like a huge scam that happens all over that city, that they take you in, they sit you down, they give you a really nice cup of coffee, and basically like give you a massage on your back and all what they can do. And they basically try to force you into buying this art that's ridiculously overpriced. Like when I went to the store, they wanted me to buy some stuff. Like the cheapest thing was like a postcard, and that was like $1, all the way up to like this really expensive art that's like $1,000, $10,000.
So this is all in a brawler game?
This is straight up like almost like a simulation in a way. There's a lot of stuff going.
Walking around town and doing stuff.
Yeah, it's a very. I was talking about I was saying that the combat was brawler. I'm not saying that the game is a brawler.
It's not fun. I'm shocked you haven't explained that yet.
Yeah, I have no idea why it's called Akiba.
If you didn't figure that out like a long time ago, then I'm sorry.
Yeah, wait, it's not obvious, man. It sounds like
Akiba's Trip? You couldn't figure out Akiba's
If there's anyone
like Akihabara, like I'm so
no. If there's anyone that would not get this, it would be Simon. And so it sounds like he did not get the pun in the title.
But I'm so confused. I understand that if this takes in Akihabara, I thought it was like an Akihabara zombie strip game or something like that. Like that's what I thought it was.
A zombie what game?
Oh, it is that too. I'm talking about some of the other stuff that's in the game before I get to that part. But the thing is that like. Let me going back to the trip in the store, not to dwell on it too much, but like I was about to leave and they say, no, let's do this little survey. And so I went through a few questions, like asked about what I like would you save someone who's drowning? I'm like, no, just because like in my demos I like to go against the grain and just do a bunch of nasty stuff. And so at the end, they still forced me into spending my money. And so it's like I still had like $100 taken away from me forced, and so I was like, this is bullshit. And so leaving that place, going around, and the whole point of interacting is you're bumping into them. So I forget what it's called, what the name of the monsters are called, but they're the vampires. And so you run around town, and then you bump into one of these creatures, and it's like it's all on your mini map. Like they tell you to go like this kind of area, and so you run over and you fight these monsters. And yes, part of the mechanics is like ripping the clothes off of them. So you beat them, you wear them down, and then the part that you can strip is glowing, and it's completely, gender neutral. Males and females, both. It can happen to both of them. You rip their clothes off down to their underwear, and then when they hit their underwear, they basically like evaporate into like this weird purple dust kind of thing. So it's kind of It's really over the top, crazy. Like there's apparently like over 100 unique weapons you can pick up. Like starting off the bat, I had like this paper fan that you can beat people with, but you can get like bats.
Except better.
It's I like that, yeah. So there's all these...
Yeah, it's a game that they're doing that I'm actually really interested and excited about.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's dual audio.
But I mean...
one of the first times, completely dual voice.
Like the build, they had English text and stuff?
Yeah. It was English. I was playing the dub version.
No. And like the billboards and shit. Is that...
Yeah. Like I said, the only thing they couldn't translate was the advertisements that were in like loading screens and stuff like that, because they would have to go to like these animation publishers and all this distributors and all these people. That would be way too much work. So that's the only thing that they could not get. They did not want to go to. But the advertisements,
on there. If it's not there, I'm gonna be sad.
Mahoka, I think
really?
That's on there. They did. I mean, they should have. Yeah, totally. They had like
that Japan is still shit.
Welcome to the NHK was on there. Awesome. They had like all these crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, they have like a ton of stuff in there. Like it's all these crazy like most of the anime you can think of. There's stuff in there like Dragon Ball was in there.
My one-time experience with Akihabara was very weird, and I ate a lot of shabu shabu. That was about it.
Is that the experience of your stay there? Did you get caught up in any scams?
I didn't get caught up in any scams, but I did walk into a couple of stores, which made me very, very uncomfortable. Not gonna lie. I also walked. Akihabara is pretty badass, though. I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of cool things to see there.
Nice.
I heard that Brian, who's the PR guy who helped with the X-Seed, he was talking about how his visit there was basically like. There was multi-stories, of course, and every story there was something completely different inside of there, anywhere from like manga to like sex stuff and all this kind of stuff. And like going on the stairs, it was basically shoulder-width stairs, and so basically you had to wait at the top of the stairs and wait for the person to get up before you could come down.
In Japan in general.
Just everything in there was just obviously completely packed in, very dense.
That's what it is.
It's just Japan. Small island with over 1 million people,
Japan and Korea are very similar in that respect. I mean, it's not any different. Like, going to stores here in, like, America is, like, very different from, like, going to stores in, like, say, most of Asia in general, so.
Yeah. But everything, I got to play, they actually let me play some of it, too, so, and it felt very easy to get into. You have to avoid, like, the cops that are, like, nearby. If you start a fight, they jump in as well, and they're, like, boss characters. You got to avoid the crap, because they can kick your ass, and so you got to be careful about them. But otherwise, like, the dub sounded good, like, they actually got some good voice actors. I couldn't really recognize them too much, but, they seemed to fit their characters well, and so I liked it. I thought it's probably the most ambitious project they've done since like Legend of Heroes.
They implemented the rotating nicknames for the main character. I know he's got like a sister character that will call him like different stuff, right?
Oh God,
I think that's the most genius localization idea I'd heard in a while.
I think so. If my memory serves me right, I think that that it did change, and so to be fair though, it's that. We didn't spend too much time because they were showing multiple games, of course, but that was basically like that took up most of the time there. I was already late getting in because having an appointment booked right when that place opens, and then you have like hundreds of GameStop employees in front of you. It's really annoying. But getting in, playing that game, that was probably the best game they showed. And then so that was fun. And then at NISA, they showed off to Sky 4. They said they're going to bring over all the DLC, including like the anime stuff like Spice and Wolf and
That show's next, by the way.
And what is it? Index? I forget what it's called.
Certain Magical Index?
Hey, well.
Certain Magical Index. They got characters
or
like
Horo or
Hollow.
Hold on.
I need to know. The show was boring. It's terrible, but
I like that it was colorful. That was it.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
All right, moving on. So anyway, I got to see at NISA. They showed the Sky 4. They showed Natural Doctrine, which pretty intense game that's apparently going to be very difficult. And so that's going to be kind of
all 3 SKUs of that game to retail in North America and Europe. That is bananas to them.
That's
NISA brings a bunch of stuff to retail in Europe.
I know. I mean, they always do for their games, but I mean, like one game with 3 SKUs retail release in North America and Europe. That seems nuts to me. Like that's something that like EA and Ubisoft do.
Right? Someone's got to be Ubisoft. Gosh.
NISA does a lot of localization work. Like even the games that they no longer directly publish, they still do localization work for. So like even like when Gust got bought out by Tecmo, they were still doing the localization work for some of their titles. And so they have a huge presence in Europe, and so like they get paid a lot of money to like from outlets to localize their products there. So yeah, they're able to do that kind of thing, and it's pretty incredible putting that much risk into that. But that's kind of the thing that I think is great about these companies like Exceed and NISA and Axis, that they're willing to do that and convince these companies to bring their stuff over here, and obviously hoping that it works out. Like Neptunia is huge, like just as big as the Sky here. So it's crazy. It's crazy how things can turn like that. It is. It sells as well as the Sky. I thought that was
a jab at Neptunia's like sexuality, but I guess that was.
It was not. It was a jab, but not at the.
Oh, it was a jab. Okay. I thought I was reading too much into that one, but
no. It was a jab, but just of a different sort. Anyways.
Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, it's pretty crazy how they do that stuff. And yeah, other than that, for the to wrap up E3 talk, I think there's a lot of really good titles coming out this year. Like I said, it's the stuff I got to play on the show floor. Some great indie titles were there too. I went to the Indiecade booth and got to play some of those games too. Like Below looks great, awesome. And so just. Yeah, it's pretty amazing the stuff that they have coming. D4 I think is coming out this year. That the new game from Sperry. So I'm pretty excited about the stuff coming. So it's like the press conferences didn't really get to show it because they have a small amount of time. But if you were on the show floor, there was some good stuff. So yeah, but let's get off the E3 talk for now because you can read our articles on the site. We got reviews, we got previews for like Witcher 3, Shadows of Mordor.
More content is still coming, right?
Yeah, we got some more stuff coming, so look forward to that. But moving on, one of the reasons we brought Ron on to this podcast is apparently he is playing Final Fantasy IX for the very first time.
Got to get this out of the way, Ron. What is your opinion?
I'm playing FF9 for the first time on my Vita. I downloaded it off PSN for $10. The game's awful. It's really boring. The combat's terrible, and I just really regret that I spent $10 on that and not like some Call of Duty DLC.
Okay, how far did you get into the game?
Okay, so the game is great so far. I'm about. Yeah, I know, terrible.
I'm just gonna sit here.
I
wonder what the hell you're talking about.
How far did you get into it?
I'm about 18 hours into it, and I have Eiko, and we're about to go to the Lifa tree, however you pronounce that.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
And you do not enjoy it?
No, it's good. It's great. I was being facetious. I think it's really great.
That's why I was going to sit back. I was like, no, everything he said on Twitter, I was like, wait.
Okay, no.
That's Simon for you. He'll take everything at face value.
Right.
Like literally at face value.
He's right here and we're insulting him.
No.
That's how we do things here.
Yeah. No, I'm being completely facetious. I think it's great. It's good.
What is there...
Yeah.
What is, like... sorry for, like, bombarding with so many questions, because, like, FF9 is, like... sort of like one of the last few Final Fantasy games I have had the joy of playing, but I enjoyed it so much despite like how late into the game, late into the series I came. Like, what was like the best part for you?
So far in that 18 hours?
Yeah.
The best part. I don't.
What do you say is your favorite part of the game so far?
Well, like what
characters?
Like, is it the story? Is it the actual combat? Is it the customization? Like exactly the world? Like what is it?
Man, that's really hard for me to pick because I really like everything about it. I really think it's really fantastically put together. I think the combat is great, and it's not too complicated. It seems like you can definitely tell it was a game that was made after 8 because it seems like it doesn't want to be too simplistic, but it doesn't want to get too convoluted. I guess I would say the story by default. I really like the way that they. I think the whole active time event thing. I mean, like nowadays that would just be a cut in a scene, in a cutscene in a modern game. But I think I really like that the way they'll split the characters up, and then you see those, and you get different scenes with the characters kind of on their own. Yeah. And they split the party up, and they mix them up, and they put them in different groups. I think at this point, I've been without all 3 of like the night characters for like 5 hours, something like that. Which I like that because I don't know where, like how I know they're going to come back to the team eventually, I'm sure, but I don't know how they're going to do it, and I like that. I like the fact that the game is willing to split the party up, and I mean like
I'm gonna
often and like early and often, and really keep them separate for like hours at a time.
I'm gonna regret saying this, but that was actually one thing that Final Fantasy 13 tried to do.
It did.
I remember that too.
I very much remember that. It definitely did. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so, I mean, to a different effect or same effect or whatever, but it's just that, I mean, that was definitely one thing that, a lot of the other earlier Final Fantasy games, like, your party just kind of joins you and then they're kind of like attached and they never leave. So Final Fantasy 9 really does a lot of interesting things with how they tell the story by different characters and not just Zidane, so.
It's good.
I mean, like, I don't want to spoil this because I don't remember how far you are exactly, but there's like parts of the story that are important and happen that Zidane is not even anywhere close to them, like while they happen. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think that was interesting.
That's the life of Tree, pretty much. I mean, that's he's going. I mean, not that Zidane's not there. I'm saying that it's this point where you're meeting new characters without everyone together.
I think the best part is easily actually the writing because it is so clever. Like,
yes, the way it's fantastic.
Yeah, the diction, the lexicon that it uses, the way it's scripted out is extremely clever. I find it like very fascinating, like how like the narrative progresses and like how each character interacts with each other, and it's sort of like it literally is like watching like a comedy, like a play, like unfold, like is what it is.
Because they open it with a play. And I've been tweeting about it a lot, which I'm sure is how you guys got wind of me playing it. But I've been tweeting a lot of like quotes from the game. It's just really, really well written. It is really funny, and the writing is definitely just like really genuine. The way the characters do interact with each other, it's such a tonal. The way it's balanced tonally is incredible because it can be comedic one minute and then it's kind of trying to say something like really profound the next, and
it's serious at the same time. Like you can take it.
At the same time, yeah, you can take it. It never feels like whoa, you just like switched up on me way too fast, or this is getting too deep, or it never feels like the game is trying to preach to you or sort of be smarter than it actually is. It's just very, very the tone, the way the tone is balanced incredibly, incredibly well.
But I think that's part of attributed to the main character Zidane because that's his attitude about like just everything.
Right. And Zidane is great. Zidane, I've been telling people, Zidane, he's kind of like the Nathan Drake of JRPGs, but he doesn't kill people. He kills monsters, so you don't have to do the whole dissonance thing. I wish there were more protagonists like him because he's already kind of subverted the whole like amnesic trope where he doesn't have amnesia. He's an orphan. I mean, the guy he doesn't really remember his childhood. He doesn't remember his origins. Which it's like it's so simple and elegant when they present it. Like you're like, why don't more games do this? Why do games like JRPGs in particular? Why do they use the whole amnesia thing as such a crutch when they could just do what they do with him? But I mean, he's great. He's got a sense of humor. He's smart. Instead of him not knowing the world, Garnet doesn't know the world. So instead, you can have him, and he's been to places. He knows a little bit about the history of most locations when you get to them. He's been a thief, so he's been around, and then he can have like some pre-established relationships. Like I love how the game. Like, one thing it does really well, I think they know when to put details into something and when to just, like, move on. Like, I love the bar scene when you first get to Lindblom early in the game. And he goes in and he's, he flirts with the girl, and then before you know, Freya starts to, rib him and stuff. And then they just kind of, they just write that as, Zidane has, at this point, he's already mentioned, 2 or 3 times that he comes from Lindblom and has lived there for multiple years. And so in that scene, they just mentioned briefly, they used to be neighbors. That's it. That's all you need to know. There doesn't need to be any big. There's no like the first time we met cutscene flashback. Like there's no wasted time on that.
Thank God for that.
All you need to know, they used to be neighbors in Lindblom, which is that's consistent. Zidane already said I used to live in Lindblom, so it makes perfect sense. And they move on, and that's pretty much it. And then
they don't dwell on it, which many RPGs feel the need to berate you constantly.
They hit you over the head. Like, did you know that these guys knew each other? And here's
it doesn't do that. You get cuts and you get history and stuff when it's
Did you know about snow and lightning and like all this stuff? And they knew the sister and Sarah.
Right.
Let's go back to that flashback like the billionth time. We didn't need that stuff.
Was this the last PS1 FF game you played? Like, did you play 7 and 8?
I played 7 and 8. Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious because I know a lot of people put like 9 as their favorite.
Graphics Wars?
I think. Well,
7 or 9. 8 is kind of
7.
8's kind of, there's some people who love it and some people who hate it.
I've got a soft spot for 8, but 8 definitely has problems. 7 is just like I kind of hate Final Fantasy 7 like more and more every year. I got to be honest. I'm not a fan of the game. But 9 I think is really fantastic. I know I've had some people
9 is a world where I would want to live in. It is
right. The world feels so well realized, which is another thing that it does really well. It's just the world, you can tell, just totally feels like such a place.
Well, I was actually going to mention this, like. I guess another Final Fantasy 13 comparison. Like, Final Fantasy 9's world, is well realized. Like, there are elements of the world that they don't explain right away, but you gather the context and what they mean, like, in terms of what places are where and who's who and these kingdoms and whatnot. And then Final Fantasy 13, you could also argue, has a well realized world, but instead it just kind of, drops all these, made-up words and terms on you.
I've seen people say that.
And the game really doesn't explain a lot of things unless you read about it. I think 9 does a better job explaining things with context than 13 does. So that was my basic point.
It also doesn't explain the geography of Cocoon, because, like, it's inside the ball. Like, so how does, like, that work? Like,
I think for me, when it comes to Final Fantasy IX, is that I feel that the best Final Fantasy games lean into more of the European, like, flair of the medieval kind of style, where it's like a lot of swords and stuff like that. When it gets, I love Final Fantasy VII is my second favorite Final Fantasy after Tactics, but the reason I love Tactics is because it's more like the European flair. When it gets kind of too sci-fi, or like with 15, it's getting a little too modern. With a little sci-fi, like more cyberpunk kind of thing. But like when it leans into that, I feel that the script can, hurt them. And so when they lean into this design of like the European, like 9 and 12. 12, I have problems with the story, but like aesthetically, it's pretty good. And so like I like that more and more.
I think to this day and age, 9 is the game that holds up the best out of every Final Fantasy pre-10.
The CG still looks pretty good.
Pre-10.
The only thing about
9 is the one that holds up the best, followed by 5.
Ron, what do you think about the battle speed in Final Fantasy 9? I know that's a common specific.
Oh God, so slow.
It can be a little slow. I don't think it's like not enough for me to not want to deal with it. I mean, you can still finish fights pretty quickly, but then I don't know if I'm good at judging this stuff, because just this past week I saw a few people say that they thought that Final Fantasy X was slow, which I don't agree with at all. So I don't know. I don't think it definitely is a little slow, and it definitely has struck me like, okay, these fights are a little slow. These can go a little bit faster. But I think once you figure out once you really know what you're doing, you can finish fights handily enough, I think.
I think it's like the difference between people who grew up playing turn-based RPGs and people that are more into the more action stuff like Tales games and Kingdom Hearts and stuff like that. That you're starting to see.
Yeah, there's definitely
kind of
varying degrees in patience.
Aversion. Yeah, and the more they get more action-oriented, the less I'm interested with those types of games. But that's just me.
I think some people everyone knows that Final Fantasy IX is kind of slower, but some people that's like a game breaker, like immediately, like. And some people.
I'm like more about the strategery that I like about it. Try to do the low-level challenge. You'll appreciate that turn-based combat more and more.
That's really odd to me, especially when you have a game that's this well-paced. The pacing, like the thing that always marvels me is like it always feels like so much stuff has happened. I'm not even like at the end of the game, but it always. I think
you're about to.
But it gives you the time to like swallow what has happened.
Totally, exactly. But it always.
Well, yeah, like what happened at like near the end of Disc 1, like getting to that gate, and then you're on that.
No, the end of Disc 1 is
the end of Disc 1 is where you meet Kuja, right?
Yeah, it's where you meet Kuja.
I said towards. I didn't say like at Disc. I'm saying like getting closer and closer to the Disc 1. But yeah, it's the part when you're on the airship going to the Disc. Just what happens at that point, and then afterwards, it's just like you're trying like this big like. You're in hell during this entire like CG scene going out, like all the action going on, the other enemy flying around trying to shoot you down, and you just like it kind of releases what happens after things kind of dip down, and then you kind of relax a little bit now that you're in this new area, and so I think the pacing's probably I agree, it's probably one of the best things about that.
Polished FF that I've ever played.
It is. I don't have any complaints about it. That's the thing. It's hard to ask me like what do I like about it most because I don't really have any complaints about it. I just think everything about it just seems like it's just so polished. The world, that cast, the script, the soundtrack is fantastic. Of course, the art is great. It just everything about it. I think it's fantastic. And I think when I finish it, I think I'm already at this point. I'm already ready to say it's my second favorite in the franchise. I think past 10. Yeah,
I think from a technical standpoint, 9 is easily the best FF out of the entire series.
I can see that. Yeah. I think so.
I think it's when I first played this game years and years ago. It was me and my brother. We sat down and played that game, and all the way up until the very end of that game, we got so into. We were playing for 8-9 hours in a day, It's like it was like these long stretches of it couldn't wait to see what happened next in that game, just because there was always something that they always kind of fed to you. And you're like, oh man, now what's going to happen? So even up to the very very end, everything's happened, all this stuff's gone down. Even up to the very end, it was still you were just at this really your shoulders were tense. I was like, this, oh my gosh, what just happened? And just all this stuff's going on. I'm not going to spoil what happened at the end, of course. I'm just saying even up to the very end, you invested so much of yourself into what was going on and what happened with these characters. Just I can't. I don't. This is so good.
There's no pushover either. I mean, granted, it's not the hardest game in the world, but it throws its curveballs at you.
It does the tense and stuff, and having to sort of I feel like this is one of the ones where I feel like I'm more involved and concerned with what's in my inventory.
Yeah, because you don't use posts in my inventory.
Who's wearing what equipment? How many tents do I have? Should I use?
You won't get an ether for years down the road. What happened to the ethers? I don't have any more.
Should I use a tent now or should I use one later? And then I'm in my inventory right now. I think I have 25 ethers. I have more ethers in this game than I have in 5 playthroughs of FF10.
And you won't find a store that sells those things for a while. At least the high ethers.
So now I'm questioning, okay, should I wait and stop and rest and use a tent, or should I just use an ether and keep going, or should I use a tent now because it won't heal all my HP because now everybody has 1,000 HP points, so a tent won't cure everything if everybody's down to 200. So do I wait? Have I waited too late? Should I just try to get to the next point and then rest eventually and use Savor every time you get to rest, whether it's 100 gil, whether it's free, you can rest. You're oh man. This is great.
Yeah. And the skill system in the game is, relatively simple but effective too, I think. Just learning skills from armors and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And smart systematic stuff to interweave with the story, the event where Steiner says to Vivi, hey, you can do magic and I have this thing I want to try, and then the next time we're going to fight, you can use the sword magic, and then they, on the bot,
sword magic,
Garnet has summoned, and you can go in and you see all those summons, and they're all blacked out, and then of course eventually, Braun has been removed from her body, and then you're oh, that's why she had the capability, but it was locked away, so now I have to go in. So,
I like the ability.
And that's the thing, yeah.
I thought the ability system was pretty awesome, but granted, I actually so a little bit of a confession. I actually played FF9 after I played Tales of Vesperia, so.
Recent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was one of the last FF games I played.
Okay.
But Vesperia actually uses pretty much the exact same ability system that 9 does. Yes.
You have a limit, yeah. It's true. You have a limit to how many you can equip, and
how you actually learn the skills is based off the weapons that you have. So
yeah.
I think it's actually really I like that customization system because first it gives meaning to the weapons. It means like you're gonna want to use every single weapon, even if it sucks for you, like because you want that ability. Not only that, but you can do that stratagem of okay, how do I prepare for this fight upcoming? Like because if you die on a boss fight, you're like okay, I need to prepare that better. Right. What abilities am I going to equip that'll make me like most effective for this fight? Like,
there's weaker equipment in my inventory that I know right now I'm going to put back on certain characters after they finish using what they're using now because I need to go back and finish those abilities out.
Yeah. So good. This game is so good. I love it.
It's fantastic.
I want to go back and play it now.
It's really good. I didn't play it tonight because I was like, I can't play it tonight because it's one of those games that's so good. I don't want to play it when I'm tired. I want to be like at my full, like I want to be at my most attentive when I play it because I want to savor every moment because it is just so fantastic. Yeah. It's great.
So absorbing. And I that's the thing is that once you hooked in, like, that's why 9 is definitely
I can see why Sakaguchi says 9 is his favorite. Like,
I have a friend who, and the reason I played it is because I have a friend who it's like one of his favorite games ever. I think this in like Grim Fandango, and I was thinking, and I just bought it one day like last week or the week before last week, and I was like, yeah, I think I should finally play this. I'm not playing anything else right now. I have Watch Dogs, but I don't want to play that. So I just got it, just kind of on a whim, and I just started it. And he said that like for Sakaguchi, it seems like this was sort of his like love letter to the franchise, like his final goodbye. There's like some connections to tie it back to the original, sort of like closing cycle, which
that's the character designs too. It's supposed to be kind of reminiscent of the old stuff,
and that kind of seems to be like a theme, the song that plays when you first open the game is the place I'll return to someday, and it seems like going home seems to be like a really big theme, like with the game. You can even see like already, I can already tell they're building Zidane up to like discovering his origins, and Vivi is like questioning his identity. Like Vivi's plot line is like so about the existential. Garnet has like the same thing going on,
In terms of characters and character development, while there's a lot of good characters, I think Vivi's is like by far they nailed it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, right from the beginning too. Right from the very, like you see him like run around and then he trips over and falls on his face, and these kids are running around laughing at him. And even the next town, like a bunch of people picking on him. Like you feel bad for the guy.
It seems like he's getting a huge focus.
Yeah, I mean, he reminds me of, for some reason, this is not a particular game, but he reminds me of Renton from America 7 a lot. Like, for the same reasons why I like him, because they start him out as sort of like nothing, but they build him up to something really grand by the end of the game. And
he's got some great spells.
I'm excited to see where he's going. I think they're building him up really great. I think him and Garnet in particular, they're doing really great. I think those two characters both, their story is really, really about like identity and like I've seen people say, oh, FF9 is a fun coming of age story, but I feel like that does the plot. So from what I've seen so far, it does it a disservice to just say it's a coming of age story. There's something more going on. This is about like figuring out like who you are as a person, not just like growing up. Like these people are trying to find like their a place in the world, which I guess there's overlap there with coming of age, but I feel like it kind of simplifies what's going on in the game to just say, it's a coming of age story. Final Fantasy X is a coming of age story. Like there's a little bit more at play here that I think they deserve credit for. Like there's real transformations going on with Vivi and with Garnet in terms of like figuring out like who they really are and what they're going to do with that knowledge.
And I think that for me, I've talked about it before. It's that to go from a peak like Final Fantasy IX, personally, that's why.
Oh, here we go.
No, I'm not going to talk about. I'm not going to berate 10 and 12. It's that when you start with something that high, anything after that you judge against Final Fantasy IX, and be as it may, my feelings on 10 are probably stronger than just something that's just kind of. It's that I judge 10 and 12 against 9, and then I'm obviously going to always be disappointed just because I put 9 in such high regard. I hated 8, but like going from 7 to 9, it seems like it was like the top of the mountain. And then what happens after that? Then you lose, obviously, Square Enix being like SquareSoft becoming Square Enix. Then like everything moved around. It seemed like everything happened to that company after 9, and that's why I kind of judged it against it. It's probably obviously very disrespectful, probably, or like it's being mean against how things can be, and like the fact that there's still plenty of people who made those games that are still with Square Enix, but like Hiroyuki Ito, who directed 9 and all that stuff, and who co-wrote the scripts with Sakaguchi, he's still there.
Right. What they're doing,
and, like,
though.
you wonder what he's working on all this time.
Yeah,
I think the PS1 FFs have been the most consistent in quality. 7, 8, 9 are all fantastic, in my opinion. Like,
it's then the PS1 era had some of the best games. Like they were putting in so many games like Parasite Eve, Chrono Cross, Vagrant Story. Vagrant Story, but the Mana series is all this stuff was coming out at that time, and so you have to kind of judge it against it. So going from that, it's like Final Fantasy 13 taking out of stuff, Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 15. Who knows what that's going to be? What's their inspiration? It sounds like with the characters they got.
A lot of what's it called? Final Fantasy 6. I feel like
it does. It seems obviously they showed off the I forget the name of the giant tank that they used in Final Fantasy 6.
Magic armor.
The Magic armor. They showed them riding that stuff. Who knows if that's still in the game at this point? But but it's obviously
I would say 14 is up there in quality. I really enjoyed my time with 14.
14 seems like a great game. If that guy, I know that Yoshida's supposed to be a big MMO fan. I wish he was a single player RPG fan too, because if that guy could be lead,
I would say even if you're a single player fan, you would enjoy this game.
But with Final Fantasy 14, you can spend like the $10-15, play for a month. I played the game for a month. I got to like level 30, and I experienced a pretty big chunk of the story. And you're talking about a team made up of people who made up some of the best Squaresoft games. Like you have the team from like Chrono Trigger. Some of them are still working on 11, still putting out great content, but you have a lot of those people who made some of the best games in the early years of Square Enix and Squaresoft working on 14 on the team there, writing the stories and stuff like that. And so, there's some greatness there, and you hope that translates to these games. Nothing against 15, it could be an amazingly well-told story. With Nomura at the helm. But anyway, so it depends on how things are going, and I don't know what exactly that game's going to be now that we've experienced 13.
Sort of bringing this back, what is y'all's favorite Final Fantasy game to date? Not what do you think is the best, but what is your favorite, like personal?
I already put out my list, Final Fantasy Tactics by and far.
Well, I meant like mainline.
Mainline 7.
10 is my favorite game of all time. Not even just FF, just in general. I love Final Fantasy 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Final Fantasy 10 was my first, so I didn't have any PlayStation consoles before then. I was, I didn't have SNES either. I was too young. But 10 was the first I played, and I like it a lot. So yes, there might be some distortion there because it was my first. I'm always going to be predisposed to be positive towards it. But even on the replay, there are a lot of things I like about it. There are a couple things that stuck out. I don't really like how some of the post-game stuff was done with the mini games or with the Monster Arena, but overall I think it's a really solid title. However, I played Final Fantasy V recently it was the last mainline title I had to get to on GBA, and I enjoyed it a lot. More than a lot.
We need the job system to come back.
Final Fantasy V is amazing.
Yes.
The job system is fantastic. It's, how you can basically have a main job and a sub job, and how it affects your equipment, and how you can set up your party, and basically the permutations of, okay, my party is set up of these jobs, and who is support and who is attacking. And then the game is relatively open. It's a world map, and you're supposed to go to certain places at certain times, but there's also a little bit of nonlinearity there. And then
the writing's good too for that.
Yeah,
that's why I love Tactics. It's the same reasons, really. Yeah.
The story is kind of really cheesy at times, so it's if you take it at face value and try to scrutinize everything, you're gonna be like, okay, this guy, Final Fantasy V spoilers, he's like a twig, and he turns, the enemy turns himself to a twig and sticks himself on one of your characters, and then he comes back. It's still just kind of like, it's got this charm. I don't like this word, but it has this charm to it, and it just kind of like sets this tone of silliness. And you can also see that in the animations and like these exaggerated sprite like animations with the big eyes or whatnot.
Like when they dance too.
Right. And it just the game is really solid, and it's also great for replays, and that's why there's this like Final Fantasy V Fiesta thing now. Yeah. You can lots of different ways you can approach it. I didn't actually do that this year because I had played it very recently, and I didn't want to play it again so soon. But I was very impressed by it. It's definitely top 3 in Final Fantasy at least.
This is one of the reasons why Adam likes Bravely Default, by the way.
I like Bravely Default because it's very similar. It's got some structural differences. But combat-wise, it's very similar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You might like the sequel even more. Sounds like.
I'm really excited for Bravely too. My personal favorite, against like very controversial opinion, is 8 actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I really enjoyed 8.
Everyone's entitled.
Yeah. I like the world of 8. I think it's very actually interesting in the way it's set up. Like the gardens are set up. I think the idea of I like the
flying.
Yeah, schools. I like the path. I like the sequence where you're doing stuff, and just when you feel like you're sort of getting tired of the stuff, it goes to the past and sort of breaks the pace. I actually enjoy that very well. I actually think there's a lot of useless characters that I really didn't care for, like Irvine or what's her name, the nunchuck.
Crystal?
Yeah, I don't like Selfie. Or Zell was okay, but like I really liked the story between I'm a sucker for love stories, so I really liked Squall and Renault, despite it being extremely cheesy.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it. There's a little bit of problems with the draw system and the battle mechanics, but I do enjoy the way you assign Guardian forces. It reminds me very similar to assigning Jins in Golden Sun. So I feel a lot of similarities.
You totally break the game.
I mean, I really enjoyed 8. I think if 8 didn't exist, my next runner-up would be 9 or 10. In terms of favorite. In terms of technicality, 9 and 5 are easily the best.
I think
actual
so far,
playability, 9 and 5 are easily the best.
I think so far, and this again, color all my commentary with the fact that I'm only 18 hours in, but I think so far, I can't imagine reviewing Final Fantasy IX and not giving it. I think it's every bit of a 10 out of 10. I think it's a fantastic game. It's definitely the best I've seen. There's just everything about it is just pitch perfect. It really is.
What you haven't seen, what you haven't seen yet in a game. You're going to a whole another level later, so
okay.
I think you're not even halfway through. Really, there's.
He's not.
I'm still on disc 2.
Below it, yeah. He's slightly below halfway.
And like we were saying earlier, the game is pretty packed in terms of narrative events. So there's a lot.
Yeah. Like that's what I was saying. That's the thing that amazes me. It just almost feels like so much has happened already.
Unlike Final Fantasy, say 12, where really by 50% of the way through the game, you've seen 85% of the story. In 9,
and it falls apart.
Well, I actually kind of like the diversion where nothing happens for hours. But anyways, in terms of just kind of just relaxing and doing whatever. But Final Fantasy 9, in terms of its narrative-driven story, it's like we were saying, it's very well paced and there's a lot left, and I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I thank you guys for having me on so I could talk about it. I think it's really, really, really fantastic. I'm glad I'm playing it. I can see why it's a lot of people's favorite, and really, it's one of those games where I play and I'm like, this is the gold standard for what I think a role-playing game can be. It's got that journey feel. It's got a great cast. You like the gameplay. You like the world. The music is good. You just like every facet you're dealing with. And I feel like if there's a model to follow to sort of get Final Fantasy back on track, and I know not everyone will agree that it needs to be back on track. I think that the mainline games. I mean, with respect to 14, the single-player games, I think could use some work. I think if this was the model they were to follow, I would be thrilled. I don't know that 15 would be that game. It seems like there's a different thing going there. I think what we're getting in 15 is a Tetsuya Nomura game, and I don't know if that's going to necessarily feel like a mainline Final Fantasy, despite the title they put on it.
And not only in style and tone, but also in gameplay. It's very action oriented. So that the kind of
right.
So even if you don't care about story and narrative. The fact that it's more like an action game, like a Kingdom Hearts, it's like that. Some people right away like that's not what we want Final Fantasy to be.
Exactly.
No. It's and you saw that with when you have 14, of course, going back to the roots, but then you also have Bravely Default and Final Fantasy 15 both saying like Bravely Default is like let's bring it back to like Final Fantasy 5. 15 is like 6. So it's obviously they're feeling that they have to go back. I just hope that doesn't mean that they're not going to
lean too hard into 15 is like 6 though.
No, it's not so much that. I just mean that the best part about Final Fantasy back then was the fact that every game felt like a whole new experience, and you had like all this huge excitement around the next Final Fantasy because it was like you go from like 6 to 7, like huge. Then you go from 8 to 9, huge. It's all these crazy things that they do.
It forced me that 9 and 10 are only a year apart.
Yeah, exactly. And then well, obviously without all those problems, you go from like 10 to 12, and obviously there's 11 in the middle, but that felt like. That 11 felt like 12.
11 and 10 are both nominal steps, right?
Yeah, it's crazy how different they used to be. But then 13 felt like they were trying to go back and then to Final Fantasy 7 and create their own Final Fantasy 7 again. And then, be whoever, fans aside and all that stuff, 13 felt like Final Fantasy 7 Part 2. And so, like, then you go 14 felt like love letter to the old school fans. 15, I don't know what 15 is.
For me personally, I look at 15 and I see a Kingdom Hearts game, but it's all Final Fantasy characters. I just feel like
that's what I did not like about Birth by Sleep.
When I look at 15, I think of a Shakespearean play. That's what I think.
I get that also, but I just feel like Tetsuya Nomura is making a
ways.
Tetsuya Nomura game, and I don't think that necessarily meshes with what a mainline Final Fantasy game is. Like, the series have always had there's always been different directors working on the series, but I think he is the one that, like, has shaken things up, and that's why, he's done, like, Kingdom Hearts and stuff. Like, he sort of switches up the flavor.
He's a visionary.
In Kingdom Hearts 3, you watch Kingdom Hearts 3, and I saw the Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer, the one they put out with the weird battle systems, like the merry-go-round and like the Ferris wheel and stuff like that, and I fell asleep. So I don't know how it's going to be when they go to 15.
He's a visionary, and that's kind of my problem with him, though. I like to call him the Ken Levine of the East. He's a visionary, but it's clear that, like, at the company, there's no leash on him. Like, there's no real nobody is like on his shoulder saying, like, hey, get this game done. Like, that's clearly not what's happening because the game's not out.
Now, what's the name of the person who's co-directing Kingdom Hearts 3? Because I know Nomura is not...
Tai Yasu.
Yasu, okay. Yes. So, they kind of need something like that for 15, it feels like. Someone else to,
They do. It's the Type Zero guy is the co-director.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't realize he was actually, like, in a directorial role.
He's the co-director.
That's right. I forgot about that.
The same way Yasu's co-director on Kingdom Hearts 3, which, both of those positions, like the fact that there's co-directors on both of those games, it's just another indication to me that, like, there's somebody at Square who is finally starting to say, like, okay, we need to start bringing in more people because we need somebody to sit next to Nomura, like, at his desk and say, hey, we need to get moving on this stuff. Like, these games got to come out.
And speaking of which, we did not talk about Type Zero's announcement at E3.
It's on Vita, so who cares?
Type Zero received to PS4 and Xbox One full price.
Let me just say, I'm being facetious. I have a PS4. I'm fine with them putting the game on PS4, but I understand the feelings. But I think it's coming. That's kind of miracle enough that it's even coming, guys.
But the fact that they're putting out 3, so 2 Kingdom Hearts games and cutscenes, but they're putting like the whole package for $40 out in December for Kingdom Hearts 2.5, and then they turn around and say, well, there's excitement around the PS4 and the Xbox One. We need to build these bases for Final Fantasy 15 so that you guys are there, and so let's put out this game for $60, or was it 60 or 70 euro? What? I'm sorry?
Well, it's remote play.
Yeah.
Remote play.
Adam gets it.
Let's be clear. They never said it was $60. There was a very obvious...
It is pre-order on Square Enix
very
site.
Obviously... You can pre-order the game right now on Square Enix site for $50.
Yes, Europe. 60... It's over... It's the full price mark on the Square Enix Europe site.
For this shit?
Yes, it is going to be full price because it's up for pre-order on the Square Enix Europe site for the price of a normal $60 game here.
And you're not talking about that erroneous listing that said it was like €70. You don't mean that. You can send me a link right now to pre-order that game for $60. Because I remember when that link first was in the NeoGAF thread and it said it was like €70, which seemed like a very erroneous listing that did indeed disappear. Which was like, I mean, how could you guys not think that's a mistake? They're not going to charge $70.
I mean, like. If it was any other retailer, it's like, okay, they're just guessing. And heck, maybe Square Enix's site, maybe they're just not. Maybe they're also just kind of temporary, but who knows?
I mean,
to be fair, I did not hear about them taking that down, so I could be talking about something.
It went down like an hour later.
Yeah, I see that. I did not see that news about them taking it down. I thought it's always been up.
I do think it's interesting that this game is coming over on the consoles, and especially on the next-gen consoles.
Yeah, I mean, it's a PSP game, and now it's going to be on PS4. Not PSP to PS3, PSP to PS4.
Which is not what I...
Yeah,
that's not what I wanted. It's been suggested that it's going to be a God of War collection type of update, where it's not really going to look like a PS4... It's not even going to look like a PS3 game, really. I mean...
It's like a PS2 put into 1080p. But it's at the same time, you know, obviously if Type 0 is a good game and they do enough work, I'll be interested in it. But it comes down to the price. I mean, if they charge $40, then great. That's the sweet spot. That's what you should be pricing it. But you're talking about like you're putting all these other HD remasters up against it. Everyone is putting out an HD remaster these days. Like Last of Us is going to be $50, but it's got like everything packed to a single disc. But like Type 0 HD, which has absolutely no presence over here whatsoever. I mean,
I think SE is riding the hype. SE is literally riding the hype.
Yeah.
Of the PS4 success and the Xbox.
Of the hype of the brand Type 0. Like.
There's hype around the brand?
Well, I mean, a lot of people were clamoring for it. Like, it was like that one game that we never... Yeah.
I would say that, but at the same time, it's like the number of people who know about Type 0, it's going to be like a drop in the bucket compared to how much they'll need to make up for the cost.
It's Final Fantasy. You're going to see the Final Fantasy logo in the commercials when they inevitably...
I know, I knew that. I mean, as far as like trying to put it out for new consoles and charge $60. So hopefully they don't do that.
But it's not going to be $60.
Hopefully they pulled it down to reevaluate the price.
I really hope that in everyone's heart of hearts, they don't honestly believe that game is going to be $60 at retail. I don't even care if anyone currently on this call actually believe that there's a ghost of a chance that they will be able to get away with charging $60.
Well, they charge $20 for a mobile game. They charge $20 for a smartphone game. I would not put it past them.
I'm more worried about the quality of this game than anything.
So am I. Yeah, so am I.
You compare it to like some of their more recent stuff that they put out. I don't know what to think about Square Enix anymore.
Right. I don't know.
And also, I'm really worried that like this game. Ideally, you want this to come out next year. Like ideally.
Yes. Yeah.
And when
we
they
know nothing else is coming out next year. Because we know that, like, nothing else.
There's nothing coming out this year. That's the thing, except for Kingdom Hearts.
When they announced Final Fantasy X remaster, all they had was a logo, and then we didn't hear anything for, like, almost 2 years. Like, literally anything. And
to be fair, and Type 0 was announced, like, at the end, like Akiba.
I think that once they announced, when they announced that, this was right after over a course of like 2 years, like Hashimoto would like tweet from the Square Enix account like pictures of like Final Fantasy VII running on PSP, and then that would come out as a PS1 classic. And they did the same thing with 8 and then 9, and then logical step, let's do 10 in HD, let's remaster and put it on PS3. I think they announced that idea right as they had it, and then 14 happened, because that was 2011, so 2012 was 14 1.0, which was disastrous. So that meant, let's move all the staff off everything so we can do a Realm Reborn, because we gotta fix this, because man, this is awful. I think they lost, if they had internal staff for 10HD on that had to get shelved. So then they do 14 2.0, but then ARR has to be maintained, so then they have to find a studio outside of the company that can do 10HD. I imagine...
I think that's one part of it. I don't think that's...
I imagine 10HD... I can't imagine that doing 10 and 10 to HD, I cannot imagine that took more than 18 months. I think with some time, finding people...
14 came out in 2010.
Yeah, well, I think that's one part of it. I think the big part of it is that it was initially supposed to be, because this was unveiled at the NGP, which was the Vita unveiling, right. But then they realized, oh crap, we can't release this just for this after seeing how this is doing, because, I mean, at that point, they probably hadn't even started on the project. They just announced
that
it.
too.
That's the thing, like Smash Brothers, they announced it, and then they started working on it.
Yeah, so, like, they realized, oh, shit, the Vita isn't doing well, we can't just release it for the Vita, and we didn't custom this, we didn't tailor this for the PS3, so they're like, now we
they realized
PS3
that,
version too, now we can't make it just the Vita version.
I don't think
they lost the source code and all,
I don't think it took 3 years to make, I don't think it took 2 years to make, I think some things happened and they had to find staff to do it.
If you talk about Type 0, they already talked about how the fact that it was already set to be localized, it was already in the process of being localized, but then they stopped.
That's
because
only the
they
localization.
found out,
It's the dev portion that takes forever. So, like, let's dial the conversation back to where we started. So, this game has to come out next year because we know 15 is not coming out next year. 15, I will eat hat.
I would not be surprised if it's out
next year. We'd know.
In Japan, I would not be surprised.
I meant in the U.S. In the U.S. This game is not coming out in the U.S. next year.
Okay. I think when they launch 15, it's going to be simultaneous. So if it's not coming to the U.S. next year, it's not coming to Japan next year.
I don't think they would localize simultaneously like that. They didn't do that.
Already a guy who was talking like, yeah, I'm in Final Fantasy 15, like he was like a guy like Jay Preston something.
That's really early. That's you can't believe any of that stuff. 13, none of the stuff was localized simultaneously. Why would they do that for 15?
I thought that
I don't think they have the budget.
I would be
Square Enix is not like in the.
They did work on a lot of 13's localization stuff simultaneously, and that's why we only had to wait about 3 months. And if you remember, Final Fantasy 13.
But I'm saying simultaneously versus the same day.
I know, but they kind of. I mean, like 13.2 came out like this, like December 25th in Japan and like January 30th in the West.
No, it came out in March.
13.2?
Yeah, it was March.
No. 13. Well, the 13
that came out a month later.
It's about 13.
It was out the same day as Soul Calibur 5. I remember. It was out. It was like a month later.
13. I thought you were talking 13.
No.
Yes,
I was talking about disappointments.
Early February or late January, I forget. But
anyways, I know with like Lightning Returns, I guess the thought was, I don't know if this is ever proven, like Lightning Returns came out in like November or October in Japan, and they came out in February here. But that delay wasn't because it wasn't done. It was just for placement. It would have. So it's very well that they could be the localization is worked on.
They've already done a couple of games in a row. Yeah, they've already done that for like 3 games.
But now if what I wasn't finished. What I was getting at is if they did that same thing for Final Fantasy 15, I don't think they'd be so scared to delay that like they would Lightning Returns.
That would be a heavy hitter.
Do you think the localization will be done by next year?
No, not next year.
I would say that
since the localization work on Lightning Returns and 13.2 seemed to be in tandem, but the delay was only like for placement. I think Final Fantasy 15 they wouldn't have to worry about that, so they could release it at the same time. That was all I was saying.
Not at all.
So
I don't think they have the marketing budget to do a worldwide marketing campaign and then push all that money. They're already in a bad position.
It costs less money.
Yeah, they absolutely do. They're doing their marketing run.
Targeted marketing is like a whole different monster, though. Targeted marketing is a whole different monster.
It would be easier.
It'd be easier. Yeah, totally.
I just don't think they're able to put out like that many copies simultaneously. They need to ramp up production. It's not the same exact game, though. It's not.
We're talking about something that's going to be happening in like 2016.
Likely, we know that Kingdom Hearts 2.5 is going to be their flagship title this year, which is really sad, by the way.
Yeah, that's as good as Kingdom Hearts 2 is.
It's pretty much safe to assume that Type 0, if they get their shit together,
is their
big asterisk, by the way. This will be their flagship title for next year.
Apparently, they're not doing that much to it though, so there really shouldn't be a whole,
I think this has to be their flagship title for next year, right? Like, there's no other.
But people are already playing the fan translation. They're already feeling, the problem of trying to play a game that's meant for mobile devices for a long stretch of time, and realizing that this game is meant to be played in small bursts. And so trying to put that type of experience on a console, you're going to experience a lot of people not understanding the pace of the game.
There's a Type 1, I think there's a Type 0 sequel in the making for consoles, is why they're also doing this.
I've not played Type 0, but I imagine that it's something like Crisis Core, where you have lots of missions to do.
Yeah,
and if you just sit down,
mission-based game.
If you sit down and just kind of do the missions one after the other, it probably gets repetitive. But as a mobile, or as a, not mobile, but as a handheld title, that can work because you can do a couple, then, you know, you're only, while you're traveling or whatnot. But as a console title, that's definitely,
I don't think it's
for a game that's like that.
I don't think it'll be problematic in the sense that it'll play much like a mini MMO because you can do missions with other players. So just get together for maybe like an hour, do a couple missions with your friends, and get off. It's sort of like doing it like a dungeon run on an MMO for like maybe a few hours with your friends, sit down, you know, have a grand old time, then leave. I don't think it'll be. But I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a good single player experience.
Yeah.
How much work do you guys think they're doing to this? Like, do we believe the hearsay that it's going to be like the God of War PSP remasters, where it's going to be really simple and like it's still going to look very basic visually, or do you think they're going to do it like 10 and just go like full overhaul?
I would not be surprised if, at the very least, they include a lot of extra content, like stuff that was missing from the game that they like had to cut for the fact that it was a mobile game. They had to like cut all that stuff. Yeah, the vision is obviously much bigger, and so they can put a lot more stuff back in. But yeah,
visually, like graphics Vitale.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Final Fantasy X was called Final Fantasy X Remaster. This is called Final Fantasy Type 0 HD. That's its title, I believe.
Okay, right.
To be fair, they could change the name tomorrow.
I'm just saying, for now, they're not calling it a remaster.
They're not.
Yeah.
That is true.
They're calling it HD.
HD. Oh, so it could literally be the PSP game in 1080p.
You know what would be bad?
I think they will at least put some more effort into that, but not much.
But it actually has borders around it.
Yeah.
That would be
letterbox style.
That would be
God.
Oh my God!
Please, Square, don't.
God. No, it's actually just, you know, it's not even that. It's just upscale. That's all it is. Aliasing everywhere.
I want to be able to look forward to like 16.
I think for sure we will see a trailer of this. Like, even if it's like a 30-second trailer, we will see a trailer for this at TGS for sure.
Just make it visual work.
Did they ever announce it for Japan? Was it in like the following Famitsu issue or anything? Because I don't remember seeing any of that.
Why would they not release this for Japan?
I mean, I know they would.
They would totally do that.
Has it been announced for Japan yet? Or?
I think it's just the fact that it'd be big for us that they announced it. It was E3, you know. They'll announce it at whatever they
not for
their
PC,
new.
in all honesty.
You're really surprised it's not for the PC?
Yeah, because this would be a great experiment for them to gauge the PC.
But that was the last remnant. That was
this would be a very good gauge for playing PC games for Final Fantasy 15.
I guess I mean, I don't know, man. It's like every other AAA developer that's not making PC games right now. They don't want to make a PC version for whatever.
I thought Final Fantasy 15 was coming out on PC.
Why are you gonna start that rumor here? They're not.
No, there's like tons of petitions. They said PC version. I remember the headline. It said they were undecided. They were undecided on a PC version of Final Fantasy 15. That was like the headline. Version. I know they won't. That's totally beyond it. But I remember, Hashimoto said that. Like, he said, we're undecided. Maybe? Maybe?
They're developing the thing on PC. Here is the version of the game already basically done. Not release it.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? Why?
Even if it's already, I mean, I don't know those. I'm one of those people that didn't think the game looked all that great when they showed it last. So.
Oh, you know, but at the same time, they're seeing success with some of their PC games, and so I can understand why they would be interested in that market. But I just, you know, Type 0 maybe, but who knows? Final Fantasy 15, yeah, I could totally see that being on PC. So, but yeah, so I don't know. With that, is there anything else that you guys want to discuss on that topic?
I want to say that Ron is awesome. We're playing FF9. That's what it is.
Yeah, I'll be.
Thanks, man. Yeah, follow me on Twitter so you can see my FF9 shenanigans. I'll tweet the quotes and rave about it because it's an amazing game.
Every time you post a song from Final Fantasy IX, I get excited because they're like, yeah, the soundtrack.
Oh man, that soundtrack is so good. Oh man,
Melodies of Life.
Melodies of Life.
Just like the overworld theme.
You know what I'm gonna do? When I finish the game, the first thing I'm gonna do is sit down and listen to that Piano Collections album.
Ooh, that's good stuff.
I love the Piano Collections for 10, so I'm sure that it's got to be great. Yeah.
That's one of the things that look most fun. And yeah, 9 has an amazing piano collection. It's probably some of the best like versions of those songs, really.
Excellent.
Well, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think we've kind of covered the spread during this podcast. This podcast has gone on for a couple hours.
We nailed all the points. Final Fantasy 16 needs to be directed by Ito.
Yeah. That's everyone hopes that's what he's been doing. Obviously, they've been quiet. They put him in some basement shelter. They haven't talked to him. He hasn't said much lately. But
congratulate his next masterpiece. It's going to be the return to form.
They did announce that new World Ends With You game for Android and iOS.
No.
They did just announce that.
They're preparing for the sequel announcement.
The sequel
for mobile.
The sequel's coming. Yeah, the sequel's going to be announced for mobile. It's coming to TGS.
Final Fantasy 12 HD.
Hey, 12 HD needs to happen.
Guys,
God, a billion times someone said that. No, it does not need to happen. It does not need to happen.
It was a very good video game.
The story was also already disappointing. I don't want to.
It had the outro we've ever done.
Can I get Fran in HD though? Is that? I mean, I don't.
Someone will make a model for you that looks like an HD.
Yeah, I don't want somebody leaving on. I want a game in my console, and I want it on PS.
Get a character model. Someone will make it an RPG maker. You'll get your 12 HD.
Yeah.
So, to kind of wrap up this, we're still got some content coming for the site. Of course, reviews for Battle Princess of Arcadia's and Atelier Rorona Plus. We'll have a review and a video for that. And I guess not a whole lot in July that I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah, July I think is going to be kind of a catch-up month for us.
Catching up
but
on the
August, August is going to be big. Exilia 2.
Someone not me will review that game.
Yeah, this time we'll have somebody else. Maybe David.
What's up with that?
He reviewed the import.
He did the import and the version. We when we did that, we felt that it'd be interesting.
We didn't
to see
feel that. Other
take.
people felt that.
A second take is interesting. That's always interesting.
That's the thing, is that a second take might be just the fact that having someone else's perspective.
Yeah, we will have someone review Exilia too.
Yeah, so we'll be seeing that, and I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It's kind of hard for me to think about games coming out that soon. September is going to have Shadows of Mordor. I'm sure we'll get a copy of that and play that. Destiny is out September 9th, but maybe we'll have something for Destiny. It sort of fits what we're going for.
Dragon Age, October 7th, I'm sure you'll deliver.
Yeah, definitely. This fall is still going to be interesting. A lot of games going to be localized this fall.
Which Freedom Wars had to get away from Dragon Age.
Freedom Wars is out this fall.
Persona Q still coming out this year?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
It's September as well. I think it's October.
I think it's probably going to be November, and then the fighter will probably be September.
Yeah, early December for Kingdom Hearts. Is that right?
December
2nd?
Yeah. 5th in Europe.
Yeah. Going up against Far Cry 4?
I think for titles like that, it's fine to go...
No, I'm thinking Far Cry 3, right? Yeah, Far Cry 4, yeah.
For titles like that, it's fine. For titles like that, it's fine to go against those.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so... July, though, we'll probably be playing catch-up, covering some reviews, doing more video content, so expect more of that stuff, more streaming, things like that. But other than that, I think that we'll call that a podcast. So thanks a lot for joining us for this edition of the TetraCast. Thank you, Simon, Adam, and Ron.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Especially Ron.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, call you out, Zach. Call you out.
Call me out for what? Call me out for nothing.
Oh, man.
None of this stuff.
It was fun.
It's fun. We'll talk more about 9 next time. So, thanks a lot for joining us, guys. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Peace.
Yeah.